Respect in terms of working with children is more about recognizing their humanity and that they have likes, dislikes, interests. One of the things that I use in the course, like one example is, if you, let's say you went out with a friend, like say you went out clubbing, for example, or whatever, to a lounge or something, and you end up meeting like these really cool people. You're hanging out, you're like, oh my God, these are the best people I've ever met in my entire life. Like, oh my God, I'm having such a good time. And then the person who you rode with is like, okay, it's time to go. And they're just like, come on, let's go. And it's like, you would be really offended because you're like, wait, I was like in the middle of a conversation, like, give me a minute. But we do that to our kids all the time. We take them to the park, they met new friends, and it's like, okay, we gotta go, rather than like give them like, okay, we're leaving in 15 minutes, to give them a chance to transition, say bye, things like that. And it's the things,
Right.
it's those types of things, it's, right now, this is what matters to me. So they need to jump at that second. But we wouldn't want them doing that to us. We want anyone doing that to us,
Exactly.
and it's really,
Yeah.
yeah, like
100%.
be recognizing like they have those feelings too,
Of course.
and respecting that. Because the thing is that that's what causes the erosion of the relationship. It's those little things over and over again. It's the turning the
Yeah.
TV off while they're watching their favorite show because it's bedtime or whatever, or it's those things where it's just like it's a lack. It seems like you're not doing a big thing, like it's not because you have your agenda. But for
Right.
them, it's completely like insulting and rude and like, oh my God, that was the cliffhanger episode, and you just like, like he was about to shoot the buzzer beater, and you just turned my TV off. Like,
Right. That would be like them walking over to your computer and closing it right in the middle of, a work call. You would be livid.
exactly.
Hey, parents, welcome back to Parenting on Purpose, your podcast for parenting tips and enjoying the journey. I'm so excited to introduce you to my new best friend, Marlene Dillon. She is she's an empowerment specialist. And honestly, girl, you have like 5 or 6 businesses. So why don't you just start us off with explaining what it is you do? Well, first of all, welcome to the show. Hi.
Thank you. Hi. Thanks for inviting
I
me.
got excited. Oh my goodness. I full disclosure, everyone, we just like talked for like 40 minutes. This woman is incredible. So sorry to bring you guys into the party late. So Marlene, before we start, where are you at in the world?
I'm in Chicago, Illinois.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I always like to get a barometer. So a little different weather than me down here in Florida.
Yeah. We actually had 70-ish degrees today, which is weird because, of course, it was like 40 degrees like 2 days ago. So, Chicago.
Yep.
You just
If,
glad.
if it gets to 70 here, all the teenagers have those UGG boots on. They still have their booty shorts on, but they got the UGG boots too.
Oh my God. 70? That's your winter.
That's it, girl. Break out the scarves and the boots because
Oh my God.
that's not going to last long.
Oh my God.
But North Florida, to be fair, has a very different climate. I just live like an hour north of Miami, so not bad
Oh.
here.
Oh yeah. You're living the life.
I'm on the equator,
Oh wow.
depending on your depending on your version. We take some snow now and then. So welcome to the show, girl. I'm so
Thank
excited to
you.
talk to you. I love your course on Udemy. I love the whole theology and connection around like healing the family unit. So
Yeah.
why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us how you're involved in the community, what your goal is in your community involvement, and then we'll kind of jump into your course and some of the lessons from it.
Sure. So I'm Marlene Dillon, or Marlene Dillon Empowerment Specialist on social media. And I am the owner of M. Dillon Designs and Publishing. So I am a children's author. I don't know if I mentioned that. I'm a
That's
children's
awesome. You did not.
author. I have published a few books for other people, which is really my dad because he likes to write periodically and he won't trust anyone
Awesome.
else to do it. So I like have published a couple of his books. I've published his songwriting album that he put out during the pandemic. He's living his best life in his 70s. So
That's amazing.
yeah,
That's
he's
awesome.
awesome. So I also I have I am the co-founder of Sister Moms, which is an organization with me and my business partner Yvonne Monique Livingston LLC. I make sure I say all of the names. She
Amazing.
is phenomenal, and she has healed her own family through open dialogue and being,
Cool.
and addressing the issues, because she was once a mom who didn't think about like who wasn't emotionally intelligent, and now that she knows so much more, she's gone back and like has apologized to her kids and is like constantly working on their relationship. So when we
Wow.
met, it was, and she heard about my course, healing our families, healing the parent child relationship, we just kind of naturally clicked, because basically what
Awesome.
I was teaching is what she was living. So we came together to create this program where we work with parents in the community, because our desire is to impact by reducing violence in our community, eliminating violence in our community by healing. healing
Wow.
healing
Awesome.
families, because that's ultimately what the community is made up of. Is so as we teach people to communicate in better ways, as we teach people to heal those hurts that are going on inside, then there's less violence, because violence is always related to inner problem, like inner hurting.
Inner trauma.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, and it's just
Wow.
projected out. So that's how we have decided to work together to create programs in the community to support families. So
That
yeah,
is so cool. And what a phenomenal. Like I'm so motivated by the people that I've met in this journey. Like
I love
that's
that.
incredible, girl. Awesome
Thank
work.
you. Thank you so much. So yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
that's me. I'm sure there are like a million other things, but I just can't think of them now. So, you know, they'll come up.
No, that's a perfect setup. So tell me how you got into actually one sidebar, which I do a lot.
Yeah.
I'm super squirrel. I love that your co-founder uh, saw herself becoming the nightmare,
Yeah,
and that motivated her to become someone different. I think
absolutely.
so many times we, try and live up to societal norms, or we compare ourselves to the Pinterest mom, or
Yes.
whatever the case may be, and we don't like. We just have so many seasons of our life, and we're
Yeah.
so intelligent as a species. So I just love that she's like, no more. I'm going to pivot and I'm
Yeah.
going to make sure that, moving forward, I have a different relationship with my family. Like that is so empowering. That's
It's
awesome.
beautiful, and the commitment to it. Like they're always having like family meetings and working through new
That's
things.
awesome.
And you know, if there's like any type of division, there's always like, we're gonna work this out. We're gonna talk about this. And you know, like they just recently did an event called something about the elephants in the room, and they just, you know, are just
Wow.
exposing things and talking about it. And you know, like one of the things that I think as parents, we feel like we're supposed to have all the answers. But I mean, everybody says the same thing, that you know, there is no book on how to raise, you know, how to raise children or whatever, like, you know, ultimately. And they don't come with a manual. So everyone is just kind of winging it. Everyone's either repeating what they experienced because it was good, or trying to avoid doing what they
Exactly.
experienced because it was bad. And you know, so we're all just like kind of trying to do the best that we can. And I love seeing how she's doing things where she's really committed to healing that stuff from the past, and being honest, because a lot of times that's something that we're not willing to do. It's just, you know, like you try to confront a parent and it's like, I was doing the best that I can, and that's the end of the conversation. But she's
Yeah.
very much like, you're right, I did hurt you, let's talk about it. And
Wow.
that's
That's
very,
awesome.
yeah, and that's what she teaches as well. She teaches other parents how to do what she's doing in her own family. So yeah.
That's the coolest part about this is like
Hmm.
it's like grocery shopping. Like you just see what you need for that day. You just pick up like little tips and
Yeah.
little like quibs of, morsels of like information. And then
Hmm.
you can, next time you see that in your life, you can just be present, aware that it's happening. And then you can start to take steps to correcting it. And you know what? Your kids' lives will be so much better because of it, right?
Absolutely. And that's the thing that I try to do with my course is I don't I basically created a course for myself. Like if I was the parent who
Of
was in
course.
need, because I'm very blessed to be very naturally comfortable with interacting with kids. Like I've always been the one they come to, and you know, will tell anything and that sort of thing. And I've always had that type of connection. So when I had my own child, I didn't want that to be any different. Um, so as much as it's like awkward when you're the person who's in charge, it's also, I'm more committed to the relationship than I am to like pride or ego or any of that stuff. And I made that decision very early on, that I didn't want to parent completely out of fear and ego. And that's typically
Yeah.
what drives most of most parenting. And that's usually what drives it into the ground.
Right.
Because once they hit like the tween years, you can't reach them that way. Now they're shutting down
Yeah.
on you. You know, you can get away with it like up to 10, 11, maybe 12. But once they like reach that point where they can say like, that doesn't even make sense, that's not fair. Now you're starting to, the relationship starts to erode. So with my
That's right.
course, I've been that's what I want to teach parents, is how to keep the relationship going. And
Yeah.
how,
That's great.
and ultimately is realizing that if your child is growing up, you have to do it too. Like you can't be the same
Right.
parent. You have to change with them.
That's amazing. I've never heard it in that way. Like you have to grow up too. I definitely made the connection that we have to self parent
Yes.
more than we actually have to parent our kids, right? Um,
Yes.
but yeah, but growing up with your kids, that's an awesome name.
Yeah.
So to give everyone a frame of reference, like I
Yeah.
know you obviously have been a mom yourself, and you're also you have your master's degree in counseling
Yes.
as well. So
Yeah.
that gave you a really good baseline. I know you do a lot of speaking engagements on this topic, so
Yeah.
I'd love if you jump into the course content just a little bit, whatever's on your heart, and like
Yeah.
what have you learned through helping people through this journey? What are some of the takeaways that parents could like start to get a better vernacular, just comfortability with where they are with their kids, and how to help improve that?
Yeah. So today I went through the whole course because I was just like, I want to make sure I can talk
Awesome.
about it, you know, and not be like, I don't even remember what I taught. Like, you know, so I went through the
That
entire
was three
course.
years ago. I don't even know what I had yesterday for lunch.
Exactly. And I recently realized that I have ADHD. Like I just got diagnosed. So I'm just like, oh, that's why, you know, because I am like squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. So
Well,
yeah,
this is why we get along so well, so it's perfect.
maybe. So, so yeah, so as I was just like, I'm not gonna remember what was in there. Let me go back. And the two of the main themes that came out for me was respect and using the golden rule. And I think that if parents can just simply handle those two things, it can completely revolutionize their entire relationship. Because one of the things that we don't realize, and I think it's partially like sometimes it's cultural, sometimes it's societal, is that is the old beliefs of like, kids are supposed to be seen and not heard. There's no talking back, there's no communication. You're in charge, they listen, that's it. And that's not really, I mean, it doesn't really work, period, but it's definitely not working with this generation of children because they're
Yeah,
they're
for sure.
so aware. They're aware of their rights, they're aware of their human rights. They're just not going for, they're way too autonomous to deal with,
And
you
thank
know,
God.
yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a blessing because most of the time, what happens with us is that we just go through life being told, being told, being told what to do, and then somewhere around like 40-ish, we're like, you know what? I don't think I want to do that anymore. But these kids are like catching that at like 12,
Yeah,
so they
yeah,
get
for
to.
sure.
It's annoying for us, but they've saved themselves like 30 years of, of going in the wrong direction. Because I remember in my counseling program, the my professor said, so everybody, how many people in here are doing the same program that they majored in? And like one person raised their hand. Like
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
a class full of like 40 people, and every single person started on a completely different path because
Of
we are
course.
trained to do what we like. People told, oh, you'd
We're
be a good
told to
nurse, you
do.
like helping people, and you just follow that path, or your parents tell you what you're supposed to do. These are the approved 5 things you can be: lawyer, doctor, nurse, policeman, whatever.
You got it.
And but I want to be an artist. Artists don't get paid, can't be an artist,
Yeah.
and people go down.
We'll be struggling.
Yeah, and it's like you follow those paths. But now the kids are just like, no, I know who I am. I want to be a musician, I want to be an artist,
Yeah.
and
Well,
they
it's
just
so
have
funny as
it.
parents. Like, I wonder. I'm so sorry to interrupt. I
No,
wonder if
please.
like I know we're more open to it now, but I
Yeah,
wonder if that's because like kids are just their BS meter is just so low. They're like, I won't allow you to not let me. Or if as parents we're like, well, I did all the things and I'm miserable, so I might as well let them do what they want to do.
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
I think it's
probably.
a little bit of both. Yeah, they're very strong-willed and they're very aware. And I think that with like the internet, they have more opportunities to see that there are people doing the things they want to do and being very successful
That's
at
great.
it. So, so we can't like give them that speech like, oh, you'll never, we don't know anyone who does that. Like, well, I know 40,
Right.
I'm following 40 people who do that,
And that's part of the benefits of it, right? There's a lot of scarcity things on the internet too, but that's
Yeah,
that's a beauty is like bridging that gap or just
absolutely.
helping bridge the unknown, shortening the learning curve, which is
Exactly.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I think it's the first time that parents are like, I don't need to have the answers for you two. Like,
Yes.
you don't feel like, to your point, it's like, oh, you have to do what is in my vernacular or my wheelhouse because that's
Yeah,
when I think you'll be safe. And we're just trying to overprotect them. And here we are
absolutely.
degrading their chances of success.
Yep.
But now it's like, look, I don't know how to do it, but this like kid has zits all over his face and he's making $10,000 in drop shipping. Like, there should be a way
Exactly.
to verify that before you go buy his course. But, you know,
You probably should, but yeah, it really is, like when my daughter teaches me things so much, and I'm just like, where'd you get that
yeah,
from? Like TikTok? Like what?
yeah, I know.
She's like, it's not
I will
just,
never peel an avocado the same ever again.
I mean, it's the things she knows. I'm just like fascinated, and I was just like, where did you learn that? Because I don't expect it to be TikTok. Because she's like, it's not just influencers doing like makeup tutorials on TikTok. They're like doctors and they're people your age. And I'm just like,
Oh,
oh,
that's
okay.
hysterical.
So you have to say it with the like
Subtle thing. That's amazing.
but yeah, but back to the course. So so one of the main things is respect. Is it's not when you're respecting a child is not the way that we view like looking like an elder, and you have to like you're down there and they're up here. Respect in terms of working with children is more about recognizing their humanity and that they have likes, dislikes, interests. One of the things that I use in the course, like one example is, if you let's say you went out with a friend, like say you went out clubbing, for example, or whatever, to a lounge or something, and you end up meeting like these really cool people. You're hanging out, you're like, oh my God, these are the best people I've ever met in my entire life. Like, oh my God, I'm having such a good time. And then the person who you rode with is like, okay, it's time to go. And and they're just like, come on, let's go. And it's like you would be really offended because you're like, wait, I was like in the middle of a conversation, like give me a minute. But we do that to our kids all the time. We take them to the park, they met new friends, and it's like, okay, we gotta go. Rather than like give them like, okay, we're leaving in 15 minutes, to give them a chance to transition, say bye, things like that. And it's the things,
Right.
it's those types of things, it's right now, this is what matters to me. So they need to jump at that second. But we wouldn't want them doing that to us. We don't want anyone doing that to us,
Exactly.
and it's really,
Yeah.
yeah, like
100%.
be recognizing like they have those feelings too,
Of course.
and respecting that. Because the thing is that that's what causes the erosion of the relationship. It's those little things over and over again. It's the turning the
Yeah.
TV off while they're watching their favorite show because it's bedtime or whatever, or it's those things where it's just like it's a lack. It seems like you're not doing a big thing, like it's not because you have your agenda. But for
Right.
them, it's completely like insulting and rude and like, oh my God, that was the cliffhanger episode, and you just like, like he was about to shoot the buzzer beater, and you just turned my TV off, like.
Right. That would be like them walking over to your computer and closing it right in the middle of, a work call. You would be livid.
Exactly, exactly. And
Yeah.
that's the thing is, so when I talk about respect in the course, it's about that type of stuff. It's recognizing that it's basically the golden rule, treating them the way you would want to be treated.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like something you apply to your kids, but if you want a relationship with them,
100%.
it helps.
Yeah. And I think that also stems from awareness or lack thereof. Like
Yeah.
you may think you're respecting them, but it seems like it requires a level of understanding where they are and meeting them at their level
Yeah.
to show them love. It's kind of like the love language that you're
Yeah.
showing them love in a way that makes sense to them, not necessarily
Yes.
because it makes sense to you.
That's so
That's
huge.
awesome.
That's so huge.
Do you have tools for people, Marlene, to like help them get out of their own way enough to like make sure that they're doing that they're showing respect in a way that the kids are going to recognize?
Yeah, I mean, in the course, I go over, so there are 6 lessons, and in each lesson, I go over a specific way that you can work on healing your family. But when it comes to respect in particular, I think that simply using the golden rule, like do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And if you really put yourself in their shoes, and that's the thing is that like a lot of times when it comes to empathy, it's really hard for parents because we look at their life from our perspective. And it's just like, what do you have to be bothered about? What do you have to be worried about? What do you have to be stressed about? But it's not about being looking at it from where we are looking down. We have to put ourselves back into the age we were.
Wait, that's what I
you
was
know
thinking when you said that.
yeah,
Right.
because that's what's allowed me to have the relationship I have with my daughter. We're besties, and the relationship I've had with kids is that when they tell me how old they are, I think about what was going on in my classroom at that time, what were my concerns, what were my fears.
Exactly.
And that's
Yeah.
one of the gifts of the course is that I do these they're journaling exercises that help you get back into that mindset, and that's really what it takes is to take the step back and say like, okay, at this age, what was important to me,
Yeah.
and it probably, if you do that, then you're not in that parent headspace anymore,
Right.
and
It's
you're
just
able
easier
to
to
give
relate.
it.
You remember like I remember being a teenager and like the anxiety I would feel if I couldn't like hang out with a certain friend or like it was the
Yes.
end of the world. And then when I compare that to like how my daughter handles things, I'm like, dang girl, she's doing awesome. Like, you know, and it just helps you, like you said, helps you see them where they're at. I have a friend who, she's also a counselor and a life coach, so
Oh,
I see
nice.
a commonality with the way you guys think.
Yeah.
But she always asks her kids like, "What's the best part about being you right now, and what's the
Mm.
hardest part about being you right now?"
Oh, that's good.
And yeah, it's awesome, and she just
Good.
uses it as at a cadence, maybe
Yeah.
like once a week or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's the best part about being you? She listens to it, now understands where they are, and like, tell me what's the hardest part about being Gabriel right now,
Yes.
and then see what they says, and then she can help guide them,
Yes.
accordingly, or help them guide themselves, right? Be a guidepost
Yeah.
and not a driver.
That works for me.
Car analogies. Ah. Oh, that's awesome.
Wait.
I love that. I love that this was a relationship book I read years ago. I think it was the Five Love Languages, or maybe it was
Yeah.
like Finding the Hero in Your Husband, or one of those books. But it was about adult relationships, but it
Yeah.
absolutely translates to kid relationships, which is just human relationships in
Yeah.
general. Like respect is a predecessor for love.
Ooh, yes.
You can't truly love somebody if you don't respect them.
That's I completely believe that. I completely agree. Yeah,
And
that's
it goes
so
into
real.
like self-worth stuff too, right? Like you can't truly love yourself or feel like you're showing up for yourself if you don't respect yourself.
Ooh,
Um,
that's powerful.
it's deep, right?
Yeah.
I know before I'm going on a tangent, but this is
No,
what I do.
great.
I know before we recorded, you were showing me one of your favorite books behind you. I
Oh
don't
yeah.
know if you want to like talk a little bit about that, but I think that ties in really well with what we were just saying.
So I don't know if you can see it, but it's recovery of your what's that say? Your inner child. So yeah, recovery of your inner child by Lucia Capcioni, I think that's what this is. Close enough.
She sounds Italian. Maybe
Yeah.
she's my aunt.
So the book is it's really amazing because it one of the main things that it teaches is by using your left hand or your non-dominant hand. So if you're left-handed, you use your right hand. Is that you can basically it's like you're a lot of people don't really vibe with the whole inner child concept, but I think that maybe
Okay.
your audience will because I think you probably attract a different group of people. But yeah, but inner child work is it's legit. It's actually shockingly legit. And when I got the book, I wasn't completely bought in.
Okay. Fair
I
enough.
just kept hearing people say that they did all this inner child healing, and I was like, okay, this keeps coming up. Maybe it's time for me to learn about it. So I grabbed.
Someone's giving me a sign here.
Yeah, and that's basically what I do. Like when I keep seeing something like that, then I'm just like, okay, Google what are the top books on, and then I grab that book.
Awesome.
So,
That's awesome.
the thing that it teaches is basically that you can access basically what all the different yous are still present within. So even though like like we basically have like changed bodies over over time. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem like it because we didn't like actually like go and like take one off, but the way that you looked when you were a baby, the way that you looked as a preteen, like
100%.
yeah, they're all different. They're all different bodies basically. And then like scientifically, we lose those cells and everything
Regenerate.
regenerates or whatever.
Yeah.
So we're basically a different person anyway. But the
I
thing
feel like
about
a totally different person.
my knees definitely do. Um,
That's awesome.
but, but within us, you can still access the different yous on that continuum from little all the way and even beyond where you are now, which is really like fascinating to me. So,
That's awesome.
one of the exercises she teaches is that by that you can write a letter to yourself or draw using the non-dominant hand, and you can actually ask your inner child questions. And the reason that I know that it's real is that my inner child's answering questions that I don't have answers to. So I
Oh,
might
that's
ask a
amazing.
question like, why do I have a fear of heights or whatever? And,
Wow.
and then you just start writing and you're just like, oh my God, there are like words forming here. And then it's like, remember that
That's
time that
awesome.
you like, well, like I personally did have a fear of heights because I nearly fell from like, I don't know if you ever saw that like is it Wiley Coyote and the like the little meat thing, the road, the road runner or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I used to like so I used to watch that cartoon and then I experienced what it's like to be on one of those like cliffs with like there's just like enough room for your feet. Yeah. So my parents
Oh
are
boy.
Jamaican and when I was little, I think I was 7, I went to visit like this area where my grandfather had animals or whatever. Like so, but the only way
Oh
to get
wow.
there is to like go way up high along this little foothill path where like if you step off, you die. So
Wow.
so of course I'm a city girl. I don't know anything about like walking up hills and stuff. So I'm just walking and then my foot slips and like a
Oh
cousin
wow.
grabbed me and like it's definitely it's like rocks and river below, way down. So
Wow.
I had no recollection of that. I actually thought I made it up. So because it was
Oh
just like such
wow.
a random thing and then
And then your cousins like verified it.
yeah, exactly. Like they came
That's
years
funny.
later and they were like, "Oh, remember, we grabbed you. You were about to fall." I was
That
like,
day I saved your life, you were about to be dead.
"Yeah." Cuz
That's
it's
crazy.
like, yeah, cuz I'm like at my sister's graduation freaking out in the stadium like can't go down the stairs and I'm just like,
Oh
"What's
wow.
going on?" Like I have like major panic. And then, and my uncle's like, "Remember that day?" Like, "What?"
Wow. That's
Yeah.
cool, Marlene.
And
So
that's
there's like so much to unpack. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, yeah, but that's the type of thing that you can access with like your inner child. Like there are things that you just don't understand, like,
Oh, I love
why
it.
you do things, but you can actually write with that non-dominant hand and ask questions. It's so amazing. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna pick up that book. I've
Yeah.
done a lot of inner child work because I'm just like into all that stuff. I mean, if this is a triggering thing for people, I just ask that you go into it with an open heart. Right? This showed up in your YouTube algorithm for a reason.
Yeah.
But the way I look at this is like it's publicly known, like science, that we only access a very small part of our brain.
Yeah.
It's also scientifically known that our cells hold memory.
Yeah.
Trauma obviously is a louder memory than something that was not a higher on either side of the spectrum. So
Yes.
it's crazy that you remember the fear, the safety aspect, because your body's
Hmm.
trying to prolong your life.
Yeah.
Um, but the actual memory, and that's where child work is so helpful.
Absolutely.
I shared with you before the call that my daughter obviously came into our life in a different way. So
Yeah.
when I first became her mom, we did a lot of inner child healing, and I was kind of doing it for her, but I was also kind of doing it because I wanted to be a good mom and I wanted to show up for
Yeah.
her in a way that was she deserved because she
That's
deserves it.
huge.
And we would do a lot of that, like look in the mirror together and kind of break down some of that fear. And like be prepared, like stuff comes up.
Yeah.
Um, but I like the idea of the automatic writing with your other hand because that really
Yes.
accesses a different part of your brain. So
Hmm.
what's the I think of Joe Dispenza,
Mm.
what fires together, wires together
Yes.
type of thing. So when you're with a non-dominant hand, you're accessing a different part of your memory
Yeah.
because it's not your neural pathways that you've carved thousands and thousands of times that are kind of blocking the
Exactly.
other ones. Even just having that conversation, I was like, whoa. It's so funny. Um, And then you said one other thing that I loved, and it was you can even project it the other way.
Hmm.
And they say that a lot in like self-help courses, or like I'm listening to this book right now called Inner Size, and it's how to like
Ooh.
get your conscious and your subconscious brain to connect. So often
Oh,
we have a goal for ourselves. I want to lose this weight, I want to build this business, I want to do this thing, I want to run this marathon, and then I want to like adopt this whatever lifestyle,
yeah.
and then like you do something and like you sabotage yourself and you can't
Yes.
connect. And we look at that as like a character flaw, like, oh,
Hmm.
something's wrong with me because I can't achieve this thing.
Wow.
And why can some people do it but other people can't? And the truth behind it is some people don't have a disconnect between their subconscious and their conscious. So when their conscious makes a goal, their subconscious believes in that goal
Oh
and
my
they can
God.
accomplish the thing. I know, right? Like,
I
but
love
many
that.
people, and it's true.
Yeah.
So many people, there's a disconnect there. So you can say all day in the face, I'm this, but if your body's like, no, you're not, girl, no, you're not, you're never going to
Exactly.
be able to get there. So it's called Inner Size. There's exercises for you to go inside your brain and
Oh
help
my
to
God.
rewire those things.
I need that book.
And yeah, girl, we're gonna swap books. I'll get that one, and we'll.
Yeah.
But the inner child is part of it, and then it goes the opposite way. It goes to when you're the 85-year-old, 90-year-old sitting on the porch having the lemonade with your dog at your feet, and
Yeah.
you're looking back at your life. Like, I just get goosebumps. It's like what got you to where you want to be.
Yes. Oh my
And it's awesome.
God. Oh,
So I
yeah.
love the inner child work.
I love
Thank you
that.
for sharing that about the book. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you told me before we recorded too, like as a counselor, that you see it's evident to you in people that you work with, and then speaking and the people that you impact when people do that inner child work and when they don't, and how
Mhm.
they show up for their children, and that helps to either connect the family or like rift the family. I don't know if you want to talk on that at all.
Absolutely. One of the things that is really important is being able to make those connections, and being able to part of being able to connect with your child is being able to connect with your inner child, because if you can't remember what it's like, you don't have the empathy to support them.
Right.
And the like when parents are like really stuck in, this is the way it is, I'm the parent, you're the kid, period, it's just gonna mess with the relationship. I almost used
Yeah,
another
for
word.
sure.
It's just it doesn't it eliminates that ability to truly connect. But when you start to work on your own stuff and start to look back on your in your past, and like a lot of people have a mentality like, it was a long time ago, it doesn't impact me now, but it's actually very much not true.
For sure.
We develop our beliefs, most of our beliefs, between 0 and 7. So it could be something as simple as someone smacked an ice cream cone out of your hand at 5. Like, that could still be trauma, because trauma isn't just like, being abused or molestation or something like that. Trauma can be, it's basically the moments where what you believe to be true shifted, like it's that pivot point. So it could be
Yeah.
like everything is happy. And then it's like, and then there's the divorce of the parents. And then it's like, wait, what happened? It's not so much, it doesn't always have to be that. It could just be something like a bullying situation in school. Like, I thought that everybody was nice. I thought that people automatically liked me. It's those moments that create those shifts in, in our being. And if we don't acknowledge those things, then we don't get to heal the stuff that happened with us. And then we unintentionally we do it to our children, or we create the fear that they don't already have because of our own experiences.
Oh, that's
So
a whole nother thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that I talk about in the course, is that sometimes we are embarrassed by our children, and we aren't honest about it. We
Yeah.
we
Wow, that's good.
so we end up choosing the people around us, because it's easier to, like, if you have, for example, like their grandmother always comments about, about the way they dress, or their how they're doing in school or whatever. Sometimes it's easier to say like, oh yeah, I don't know what's going on with her, rather than like confront the
Oh,
person, because we don't want to have to deal with the confrontation. So we let the child
and
be the
isn't
scapegoat, So, and that
so
happens a lot.
hold on. That's a good that's something I want to dig into.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I'm not gonna say I never felt that. I've absolutely
Yes.
felt that. I've reacted the wrong way, a
Hmm.
way that does not make me feel in alignment or make me feel good about myself.
Yeah.
But I've also reacted the positive way.
Good.
In my in my later years, and with my wisdom. But what comes to heart there is that's projection. That is something on the parent that you
Absolutely.
don't feel comfortable in yourself. So
Yes.
now you have to take this beautiful child who
Hmm.
is a product of your raising,
Yes.
and now you're shutting off or you're not taking the warning signs, which is how they're behaving or whatever that is.
Yes.
And that is something that, that is something that kind of gets to you.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's always behavioral. Like, I'll give you a very, very candid example. So my husband's Samoan.
Mhm.
He's like very tall, like, he's present. He's
Yeah.
got a big stature. He's a present guy.
Yeah.
So my son is like 99 percentile for everything.
Yeah.
And like, I was feeling so like I had some inner work to do around when like
Mhm.
growing up. Like my kid is barely 3, he just turned 3. I mean, he's smart as a whip. He's
Yeah.
reading, he knows how to count, he can skip count. He's
Wow.
brilliant,
Yeah.
so smart. And he is larger than life personality. And he's
Mm.
also like inside like a 7-year-old's clothes.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, he's a big boy. He's gonna be a big boy. They
Yeah.
told me he's gonna be like 6'6", gonna be a big boy. So when he was younger, when he was around his white cousins,
Mm.
I would see like the comparison. Like I've even had people say stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to talk about this if this happens again, because I don't
Mhm.
want this poor kid. Like I don't want your crap getting on my kid
Yes.
because of the way you feel about size. Like that's not cool.
Yes.
And it's interesting, but then I had to do the inner work too. I'm like, well, where am I at with that? And how do I feel? And it's interesting because I had to work through some stuff, and I didn't know I
Yeah.
had that. Um,
Mhm.
and I think your
Mhm.
kids can be a great tool for you in that way if
Absolutely.
you're honest and you allow them to be like
Yes.
a tool for self discovery and like spiritual like path. It's such a lesson. Like,
It is.
dang, it's amazing. But I can also see when you're busy and you're trying to go to work and like all this
Mhm.
stuff, like the kid is suffering because of that. Like this is a separate
Yes.
example, but like my husband and I have to go to work in the mornings. We have calls, we have stuff, and like the poor kid is trying to start his day. Like, and my
Yeah.
15-year-old is kind of like she homeschools privately, so she kind of gets to do her own thing.
Yeah.
But right now, Gabriel's he's young, so he kind of has to go with the flow of us.
Mhm.
And I was like, does he have a moment to like decompress or like
Yeah.
start his day in a way that feels good to him, not like he's getting rushed everywhere? And then
Right.
these kids get thrown into a tight environment with other kids who had the same type of morning, and we wonder why there's
Exactly.
issues.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
But I totally hear you on that, and it's real because I used to work in a school. I was in the Head Start program, but I was observant all around. And one of the things that I would notice is just like parents like cussing their kid out like right as they drop them off. Like, what kind of day are they gonna what day do you
Oh,
think they're gonna have? And that like
yeah, it's
impacts
crazy.
their entire day. That impacts the next person they interact with, how they are in the classroom, whether they like either they go internal or they're acting out. And it's all because we decide to pour that on them at the
Yeah,
worst possible time. Like that's one of the things like that is huge for me is catching myself because it's so tempting to just like I need to say this now, especially with ADHD, because it's like the
no, I
impulse
feel that. I've been there.
control, and for me to just like no, don't say that because you are going to ruin you're going to ruin her day. Like don't say that right before you drop her off. Like
That's
hold
great.
that in right now. This isn't the time, and a lot of times it's like, no, it needs to be said. Like no, it doesn't have to be said right
Yeah.
now. And maybe I
Still
need
feel
to
that way at
process it.
4.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I need to process it first because the way it's going to come out, like, and that's another thing that I see a lot of times with parents is just like blurting stuff out because when you're angry rather than taking a minute, because it's like you want to make sure that they know how upset you were or whatever. But
Yeah,
you
that's
don't
great.
like the words that might come out of your mouth, like you can't take that back. They will be hearing that probably for the rest of their lives, and we don't even realize it. Like saying things like I'm so disappointed in you is one of the worst phrases you can ever use when you speak to your child.
Yeah,
And so many people do it. But that for the child, they hear I am a disappointment, and they will the more that they hear that, the more that they will have that negative affirmation, and they will become exactly what you told them they are. And
right.
it's okay for you to
Wow.
feel disappointed, but I don't even think you should say those words. That find another way to say it. Like I would have
Exactly.
preferred that you did this as opposed to saying I'm so disappointed in you because it like guts them when you say that.
Yeah, and we all know what that feels like, which is how it's
Yeah.
in our vernacular, yet it's where you go.
Yeah.
This is what I meant earlier by like you have to self-parent way more than you
Yeah.
parent.
That's so huge.
Because like that was the actual other name for this podcast is like how not to f up your kids.
I
Because
love it.
when they come to us, like they're amazing and they
Yeah.
do. I like what you said earlier about like the real definition of trauma. Like that explanation is probably one of the best I've ever heard. It's a paradigm
Mm.
break. It's a here are
Yeah.
the foundation that I built my life on and myself, how I view myself in my world, and you
Hmm.
just shattered it. And
Yeah.
now I don't know where I belong. And you know what? As adults, we do feel like that a lot
Yeah.
of times. And now we're just kind of putting that on our kids, which is so interesting.
Yes.
When that happens, so I can think of, obviously the 3-year-old comes to mind because he
Yeah.
has that happen more. The 15-year-old has had time to hedge herself. When that happens to a kid, do you have any advice on like, I see that he just went through something that was traumatic for him.
Hmm.
Um, what's the right way, or a way that you feel resonates for us as parents to show up for our kids
Yeah.
in that time to help support them? What's a good practice?
Yeah. I think that empathy, empathy, empathy. So a lot of like being in the moment and like imagining it as yourself. What do you think is going on
Okay.
in their mind at that moment? And combating that because the and this is, me maybe sharing, oversharing, I don't know. So when my daughter was born, I was married. By the time she was 2, I was not. And I moved back in with my parents into my childhood home. And
Yeah.
so the dynamics are very weird, because it's like, I'm in the household of, the people who raised me. They still see me as their little girl or whatever. So there were a lot of moments that
Yeah.
were where I recognized like there were similarities, because like my mom, is watching my daughter while I'm at work, and I'm not realizing that she's like influencing how she feels about herself,
Of course.
things like that. So the thing about it is that, as much as that like tears me apart, there's also a part of me that is getting to heal my own experience, because I'm getting to
Wow.
walk it with her, and I'm
Wow.
her guide. So my advice is to be that person that you wish you would have had in that moment, and
That's awesome.
and and keep them, because the thing is that the reason that we end up with these beliefs at between 0 and 7 is that when that moment happens, we come up with a conclusion about what happened. So we see the experience, and like, someone smacked the ice cream out my hand. So whatever comes to mind then is, like, I can't have nice things, for example, if that was the thought. And then we go through life finding other moments where that happens, and then because of, like, the brain has the reticular activating system that causes us to focus on certain things, because we told our brain that that's important, we block out all the other stuff. So we don't see
Amazing.
all the times that good things are happening to us. We just see bad
Yes.
things happen to me, or I can't have nice things. So the gift that we get is that if we witness that for our child, we can say, I know that this moment might have made you feel like they this is what happens here, but this is just a random moment, and it doesn't have to be the rule. And that's something that I have had the gift of being able to teach my daughter in moments, is like, you
Wow.
don't have to let that be a blanket statement. This was one event, and this is
Yeah.
what happened in this one moment. But look at this moment, look at this moment, look at this moment, and give, examples of moments that can combat that becoming a solidified belief, if that makes sense.
Wow.
You know?
That makes perfect. That resonates with my heart, like my whole body.
Yeah.
Um, and like even little ones, like Gabriel, I picked
Yeah.
him up from school today, and it's Thursdays, like mommy Sunday, and he's every kid is so different, but where he is, because he's so like he picks things up so quickly, and
Mm,
he really like ruminates through them in his mind and like concludes things like to what you
yeah.
just said. But he hooks onto a moment, like whatever his focus is, like that's
Mm,
it. So
yeah.
today he goes, and he says this all the time. He's like, I had a sad day, and I'm like,
Mm,
did you have a sad day or did you have a sad moment?
yes.
What happened?
That's
And then he's like, oh
huge.
well, this happened. Right? Like, well, what else happened? Oh, I did this and I played with this guy and my best friend and this. I'm like, so you had a lot of good moments too, right? So
Yeah.
overall, did you have a good day? And he's like, yeah. And then he actually felt better about it. And it's like, oh my
Huge.
gosh, like
Oh,
and you have to really know. So many things come up to me. I want to unpack here. Like you have to
yeah.
really see where your kids are because it's different for everybody. And
Absolutely.
again, this makes me go back to if you are walking this journey like hand in hand with them, you are really becoming a whole human. You're really
Yeah.
healing yourself.
Absolutely.
And not even if you've had like trauma to your point, right?
Yeah.
Like by societal standards, but you are helping love and be that full person for yourself. I think that's so powerful. And I see how it ties into what you and your co-founder are doing in the community because
Mm,
when you feel whole, like I always told my daughter that when she was little, she poor kid got picked on for everything, right? Her mom's a different color, this, it's like her hair is
yeah.
different, like everything. And I always told her, I'm like, honey, whole people don't have to hurt people.
Mm,
Like I know you don't feel that right now.
yeah.
I know they look like they're all shiny and bright and they look like everybody else and you look different, but I want you to understand something.
Yeah.
Like I always told her, eagles don't flock, baby. Like
Mm,
you are meant to be different. God made you different. Stop trying to fit into everybody else.
yeah.
And whole people don't hurt people. And
Love that.
it's just getting them to like, I recognize even as a 22-year-old that that age is so imperative for their self worth,
Yeah.
right? And I think about that all the time with Gabriel, and I'm so blessed. Like if you have multiple kids listening to this, like it's such a blessing to have older siblings,
Hmm.
cousins, because now your kids get to have another reference point that you trust, like
Yes.
besides you to help to your point to find what that reality really is. Like that's why I
Absolutely.
love my kids having other interactions because
Yeah.
I don't want to have the total responsibility for shaping their world because it's
Yeah.
not, then they're going to be just like me, which is, I mean, I have a great life, but I want
Yeah.
them to have their own experience too.
Yeah.
Like that's, it's a lot.
Yeah. That's huge. That's huge. You actually made me think about one thing that I just want to touch on, that I notice sometimes in family dynamics. That what people don't like, a lot of times parents don't realize this, that I don't want this to come across as like blame. I love the dynamic that you have created within your family. Like, you're a rock star. But a lot of times
No,
that
I'm
there's,
here for it. This
yeah,
is good.
a lot of times there's like, when there's like fighting and things like that and sibling rivalries, a lot of times parents don't realize that they're the cause, because of the way that they treat the individual children, and that your kids follow. Like they notice which one is the, sorry, I know another way to say this, but the F up child, the child that gets in trouble all the time.
Wow.
The way that you engage with them, it teaches your kids how to engage with each other. So they will talk
True.
down to that one, like you're always messing up in school or whatever. And now they're having their own war because they learned that from you. And
Exactly.
so that's one thing that I would love for parents to be a little more mindful of, is that you're not just teaching your child how to feel about themselves, you're also teaching their siblings how to feel about them and how to interact with them. So,
Oof.
yeah,
It's a mirror. It's a very clear,
absolutely.
microscopically large mirror.
All the time, all the time, and but the thing is that if we're committed to our own growth, then we're able to see these dynamics and then work on them. It's not about the blame. It's about seeing it. Once you have awareness, then deciding what you're going to do about it. Like you can
Yeah.
sit there and wallow in it, but that doesn't help anybody. But
No,
if you're committed to, I want my family to be the best that we could be, I want us to be the most loving we can be, then you shift out of that ego perspective of, oh, I'm doing something wrong, to how can I help my child have the most, meaningful life or love themselves more, because all of that impacts who they become. If they're like completely insecure because you're constantly criticizing them, then they're not going to reach those levels that you want them to, because they're going to be too insecure to do it.
right.
Like they could be the top, like they can get all straight A's and be the valedictorian, but they're too afraid to apply for a job because you've taught them that no matter how good they do, they're going to be criticized, you know?
Yeesh. And that's where like that self-fulfilling prophecy happens with parents, right? Because
Hmm.
the emotional quotient, and I don't mean this to be triggering, but
Yeah.
like we all could get better, right?
Yeah, of
That's
course.
why
Me
we're at
too.
Class from Earth. But I think kids have a higher EQ than adults, 100%.
I agree.
Um, 100%. And if you are the type of parent, and you're not, you wouldn't be here if you were, but if you are the type of parent who's not open to growing, you could be imposing all those limitations. You are going to impose all those limitations on your child. And now, more
Absolutely.
frustrating for you is you're creating the person that you try not to create just by being the model that you're being.
Yeah.
Like I think that about everything, right? Like obviously there's tons of different like circumstances, but I think every relationship in your life, this was a meditative thing that I
Hmm.
learned years ago. Like if there's a coworker at work or your spouse or a
Hmm.
parent or like a sibling, and
Yeah.
they say something to upset you, like you call that into your life so you can
Mm.
feel that emotion and then you
Yeah.
can process through it. Now, if
That's
you choose
huge.
not to process it, it's going to show up in different ways and it's going to keep
Wow.
showing up and keep showing up because this class from Earth, man, this is why we're here. So to feel it,
Yeah.
process it, and let it go.
That's powerful.
Like I had a coach I was on with the other day, and he talked about like I know I've talked about this before in the podcast. We talked about releasing weight. He doesn't say
Mm.
he doesn't say I want to lose weight. He's like, what
Yeah.
happens if you lose something? You want to
Mm.
find it? I don't want to find it. I'm releasing it. I don't need to hold it. I'm
I
going to
love
release it.
that. I
I
love
thought that
that.
was so cool, but energetically too, right? Not just like protoplasma, but like
Yeah.
I don't need to hold the weight of that feeling. If somebody
Yeah.
says something across to me, I want to feel the feels and
Mm.
process it the way that children do. Take 90 seconds and then let it go. And
Wow.
like I said, EQ, kids are so good at that
Yeah.
until we, as their role models and their caretakers,
Hmm. Yeah.
teach them otherwise.
Absolutely.
Which is why another reason for this podcast is just to connect. I don't think, I think everybody innately knows how to do this with their kids,
Mm.
just by connecting, but just by giving a reminder to be present and to have that connection,
Yeah.
they're gonna be able to do that, right? Because this looks different for every kid, for every
Absolutely.
family.
Yeah.
It's just that presence.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
I'm learning
I have
something.
one more question for you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're amazing. This is so good. I'm so
Thank
excited to
you.
see what our community, like how they resonate with this message. And
Yeah.
it's so awesome. Okay. So I didn't tell you, I forgot to tell you this, but I think you're going to handle this quite well.
Uh-oh.
I always end our podcast with the same question. We do a TikTok. Are you ready to dance? I'm just kidding.
Oh God.
I'm just kidding.
You see me like slide out of the screen.
You got a 14-year-old, right? You got to be good with the,
Yeah.
I don't know what to say nowadays.
Yeah. She would disown me.
That's amazing. My question, I always ask the same last question, which is if our parents listening could take one tip from our time together today and they can start implementing it immediately, just something small, doesn't have to be big, and it can be a tip that'll help them improve their relationships with their kids or just themselves or just to enjoy their life more, what would you say?
Oh, okay. Um, Golden rule. When it comes to your children or just people in general, do with them what you would want someone to do with you. So whether it's giving them more time so that they can like transition or process, like it doesn't have to be extra. You don't have to like now become, like on like we're both kids now. It's just about saying like, okay, I know that you're probably gonna need another 5 minutes. You know that their show is ending at 9 o'clock. You can come in at 8:50 and say, in 10 minutes, I'm turning the TV off. Or, it's bedtime in 15 minutes. Like just giving them transition time or just just, if they're on the phone, like, that you would have been at their age, you would have been horrified if your mom picked up, well, I guess you can't even do that nowadays because they're going to use a cell phone, like,
Yeah, we can't jump on the other line. Hey.
yeah, like it's time to get off the phone, like my mom would have done. But,
And
but
you're just walking on their Snapchats, like, go
right,
figure.
photo bombing their selfies.
I do
But
that
yeah,
all the
like
time.
a lot of times
I
parents do
should
that
work on the
super fun.
respect. I do that all the time.
Yeah, I could work on it. But yeah, like a lot of parents do things and they don't think about how much that's hurtful to the child, or even like if their child is like telling them about Minecraft for the 50th time or whatever, and they're just like rolling your eyes, and like,
Oh.
the fact that your child wants to talk to you is so much of a big, like, I don't care what they're talking about. Make it seem like you're interested because they'll remember that, because if you don't want to talk to them about the stuff that they really want to talk to you about, how do you expect them to talk to you about the things that are going to be hard for them to bring to you, And that's
That's
the reason
smart.
why I'm so big on like that communication, because you want your child to be able to come to you with the hard stuff. And if they can't come to you with the easy stuff, you know, yeah, you've basically
Yeah, if
just
you're
shut
not
them down.
accessible, yeah,
Yeah,
if you're not accessible for the fun stuff, they're not going to ask you about the stuff that they think they're getting in trouble for.
absolutely not. Absolutely not. Oh, and one more thing is learning to pause before responding. A lot of times they will say things that might be jarring. Learning to, if you can try to make your face neutral while they talk to you, especially the older they get, because they'll say stuff and you're just like, oh my dear God, but that the facial expressions, your energy, all of that stuff, it will shut the conversation down and you won't get that chance again. A lot of reasons why they're locked in their room and they're not talking to you is because they know that they can't,
Mm.
and the more that you're open, the more that you can like shut your mouth. Like in one of my videos, I say catch a bubble. That was something we learned. I would see teachers do where they're like the kids walking through the hallway and they like tell them to catch a bubble and they like puff out their cheeks because you can't talk and have the air in your cheeks. So I would tell parents like
Good.
catch a bubble so that you can just listen, let them talk. Don't interrupt. You'll hear a lot more
Yeah,
and you can comment later, you know.
that's
But
good.
yeah, so
Wow, those are great. This was like so many golden nuggets in here, Marlene. Thank you so much.
I'm
I
so
love
glad.
that. I needed that last tip because my 3-year-old has picked up some choice words.
Oh,
Yeah, some new shiny things in his vocabulary, and like I'm almost like try not to laugh because
yeah.
it's like, oh no. I'm like, just
And he
please don't
used
say
it
that to me,
right.
Grandma.
Did he use it correctly? That's the important part.
Oh, he used it. Oh, perfect context, perfectly. And then he goes, and then it's like, oh, baby, that's an adult word, and
Mm,
but it's like you don't want to lie either. So
yeah.
kind of that word. And it's funny. I'll give this example because this is like not wanting to be like a mom just for being a mom's sake. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to just reprimand him just to reprimand him, like because that
Yeah.
I caught myself doing that. He said the F word in the
Yeah.
car today, and I was like,
Ooh.
baby, I usually prefer if you use a better word. And he goes, what's
Oh,
wrong with that word? I'm like, well, and I wanted to say it's a bad word. I'm like, what the
yeah.
hell does that mean to him? It doesn't mean anything to him. I'm like,
Yeah.
that word offends people. It makes them uncomfortable. It's
Mm,
usually called an adult word.
yeah.
And he's like, are you an adult? I'm like, yes. And I do use that word sometimes.
Yeah.
But you're so smart. Let's think of a few other words we could use. What were you trying to say? Because that's a
Yeah.
catch-all kind of word. And he was just saying it to say it. And then we talked about other words. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, like, and then when he said the other words later in the day, I'm like, I'm so proud of you that you used that word. Thank you. To like hopefully reinforce the behavior.
Yeah. I love that. That's so
We'll see.
good.
The principal hasn't called me in yet. We'll see what happens. Um,
I love the way you handled that. That was amazing. Like,
hey, I'm learning a lot from people like you on this show. I think this
so
show
good.
I wish I had this information earlier.
Yeah. Thanks.
My poor daughter had to deal with like the other version of me. Not the best, but she's just incredible. But that's awesome. You are amazing. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here, sharing your heart and your work with us.
Thank
I always like to have the purpose of this is so if people resonate with your message, they can find you. They can seek guidance, take your courses. Can you please share with us, Marlene, where people can find your information and your courses?
Yes, everything can be found on my website, mdillondesigns.com. So that's MDILLON designs with an S.com. Everything that I do, my children's books, which are about healthy self-esteem and natural hair.
Awesome.
I have
Yes.
products there that are related to that. I've got my course there. Yeah, everything. You can find me there, my blog, all of it.
Dude, that's awesome. I didn't even know that
Yeah.
you did that stuff. I might have to hit you up for some children's books that I have like collecting dust in a drawer and right in front of my face, like burning a hole in my face. But yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll keep in touch. You are
You might.
incredible.
Thank
Parents,
you.
as always, you guys, I love you. I'm so proud of you and just appreciate you guys being here on this journey. And when you guys reach out to me and you share with me like the podcast and how it helps, like it motivates me and it makes me find amazing people like Marlene to bring into our lives and to shed light for us to just make this journey fun because that's what it's supposed to be, right? That's why we're here interacting with each other. And even the hard interactions, we have lessons to learn. So I'll get off my soapbox. I'm so proud of you guys. I love you so much. Please smash the like button for me. Help us get into other homes. Goodness knows we need it right now. Let's get amazing people like Marlene into other parents inboxes. So we love you guys. Until the next perfect time. Stay beautiful and stay inspired. Have a good night, guys.